Just want to give a massive shout out to the following members of the channel. You guys are special. Thanks so much for being part of the family. If you haven't already and wish to do so, consider becoming a member down below by hitting the join button. If not, a like and subscribe is equally appreciated. Thanks so much.
Allah had one of those profiles that looked way too put together to be real. Every photo looked like it was pulled straight from a brand shoot. Perfect lighting, perfect outfits, that confident but effortless smile. Her bio said she worked in corporate communications, and her prompts were all clean and polite, nothing personal. She didn't even list her hobbies, just things like networking events and strategy meetings. I should have seen it as a red flag, but at the time I thought it made her seem mature. When we matched, her first message wasn't flirty. She asked what I did for work. Not how my day was, not what music I liked, just my job title. When I told her, she replied quickly with something like, "That's impressive," followed by a question about where I worked and how long I'd been there. It felt a little formal, but she was pretty, and I told myself maybe that's just how professional people text. We met a week later at a rooftop bar she picked. She showed up exactly like her photos. Neat, stylish, business casual, even though it was Saturday. She asked questions like she was in an interview. She wanted to know what my job involved, what my company culture was like, what software we used, and how senior my position was. She never asked about my family, my hobbies, or what I liked to do for fun. Everything was about work. Still, I didn't think much of it. She said she loved ambitious people, that she was drawn to people who had a vision. I figured she just liked driven guys. We started seeing each other regularly. She was polite, kind, and incredibly organized. Every date was planned like an itinerary. Reservations booked days in advance, follow-up texts confirming time and place. She always showed up dressed like she was heading to a conference. She talked about her job constantly, but never said much about what she actually did. She said she helped companies manage narratives, which sounded vague but important. After about a month, I noticed something strange. She tagged me in her LinkedIn posts. At first, it was harmless. Stuff like, "So proud of my amazing boyfriend for all his hard work." It felt weird seeing my name on LinkedIn next to heart emojis, but I figured she just liked showing off. Then she started posting photos of us at restaurants with captions about building healthy habits for long-term success. People from her network commented things like, "What a power couple," and "Love seeing professionals thrive together." I laughed about it with my coworkers. It was odd, but not creepy. Then she started doing more. One day she posted a photo of me working on my laptop at a cafe. I didn't even know she'd taken it. The caption said something like, "Surround yourself with people who motivate you to achieve more." It wasn't even about me. It was about her brand. It got hundreds of likes. That's when I realized she treated LinkedIn like Instagram. Every little thing became content. If I mentioned getting a promotion, she'd turn it into a post about supporting your partner's professional journey. If I texted her something nice, she'd screenshot it and post it as a motivational quote from a loved one. I asked her once why she did it. She said people loved authenticity and that her followers were inspired by seeing real relationships between driven people. The word followers threw me off. Who talks about followers on LinkedIn? When I checked her profile again, I noticed she had over 30,000 connections. She wasn't using it for networking. She was using it to build an audience. I started digging through her older posts. There were pictures of her with other guys, different faces, same captions. Power couple. Strong partnerships build strong careers. Every few months, it was a new man, a new relationship, a new batch of professional photos. She'd been dating publicly on LinkedIn for years. Each relationship lasted around 3 months before she deleted all traces and replaced them with a growth update post about personal transitions. I kept scrolling, and the comments were always the same. People cheering her on, saying things like, "You're such an inspiration." It wasn't even about the relationships. It was about how she marketed them. One night, while we were out, her phone buzzed nonstop. When I glanced over, I noticed notifications from a LinkedIn group called Professional Power Pairs. I didn't even know that was a thing. She laughed when she saw me looking and said it was just a networking project. A few days later, she asked me to take new pictures with her. She said they'd look great for engagement. I thought she meant personal engagement, but she clarified that she meant engagement metrics. That's when it hit me. She wasn't dating for love. She was dating for exposure. Everything she did, every compliment, every date, it was all part of a brand. I tried pulling back after that. I stopped posting anything work-related, stopped liking her posts. She noticed. She said our online alignment mattered if we wanted to grow together professionally. When I told her I didn't care about building a brand, she looked at me like I'd just said something offensive. She stopped texting as much after that. I figured she was just busy. Then one morning, I logged onto LinkedIn for work, and my feed was full of her posts again. Only this time, she was with someone new, a guy in finance. The caption said, "Sometimes life brings you a partner who truly matches your vision." All our photos were gone. My name had vanished from her posts. It was like I had never existed. Out of curiosity, I messaged one of her old exes, someone who commented under one of her earlier posts months ago. He replied almost instantly. He said he'd gone through the same thing. She dated him, tagged him in dozens of posts, built a small following around their power couple image, then dropped him when she found someone with a better title. He said she once admitted she only dated guys with jobs that added credibility to her online persona. She told him executives and engineers performed best in engagement analytics. It wasn't about love. It was about what her relationship said about her. She turned dating into a business strategy. After that, I blocked her. But every now and then, her posts still show up when someone in my network likes them. Each one is the same: clean photo, fake smile, corporate caption. A new guy every few months. Always dressed well, always in an office, always tagged as her motivation. It's strange seeing her pop up on my feed, knowing how rehearsed it all is. People comment how lucky her new partner it is, how professional and supportive she seems. No one realizes they're just another name she's using to grow her image. And I can't even get mad anymore, because somewhere out there, another guy is probably sitting across from her right now, talking about his job, thinking he's finally met someone who gets him. He probably doesn't know yet that he's about to become a post. Ryan wasn't like the usual guys on dating apps. He didn't try to be funny or mysterious. His profile was simple: photos of him cooking, hiking, and one with a niece or nephew on his shoulders. His bio said he wanted something real and long-term, and that he hoped to have kids soon. I thought it was honest. Most people dance around that topic, but he was upfront about it. When we matched, his first message wasn't a pickup line. He asked about my weekend plans and what I like to do on Sundays. He talked about wanting a peaceful life one day, a garden, maybe 2 kids and a dog. It sounded mature. I dated people who couldn't even commit to dinner plans, so hearing that from someone who seemed grounded was refreshing. He was charming, but not fake. He listened. He asked about my family, my childhood, what I wanted for the future. I told him I wasn't ready for kids right away, but maybe in a few years. He said that was fine. He said he wasn't rushing anything, just wanted someone on the same path. When we met, he was exactly how I imagined him. Polite, soft-spoken, clean-cut. He opened doors, remembered my coffee order, complimented me in a way that didn't feel rehearsed. It was like meeting someone's older brother, the dependable one who always shows up on time. After that, things moved fast. He texted every morning and night, asked if I'd eaten, told me about his day. He wasn't obsessive, just steady. He had this way of making everything sound planned out, like he already knew where he wanted life to go. About a month in, he started bringing up baby names casually, laughing as he listed old-fashioned ones he hated. I thought he was joking. But then he asked serious questions. If I wanted a big family, if I'd ever considered how many kids I wanted, if I believed in traditional parenting. It was early, but he made it sound like a normal conversation. He said, when you know, you just know. I remember one night he said something that stuck with me. He said, "I want to be a dad more than anything." He said it with this calm certainty, not desperation, like it was his only real purpose. I told my friend about him, and she said he sounded sweet, but maybe too eager. I brushed it off. He was 32, not a teenager. Wanting kids wasn't strange at his age. Then one weekend he said he had to travel for work. I didn't think anything of it. But while he was gone, one of my coworkers mentioned seeing someone who looked just like him at a local farmer's market with another woman. She said they looked close, like a couple. I laughed it off at first. "There's no way," I said. But later that night, curiosity got to me. I searched his name on Facebook again, this time going deeper. That's when I found something. It wasn't his main profile, but a tagged post from someone else, a woman thanking Ryan for helping her set up a nursery. My stomach dropped. I clicked her profile. She was pregnant. Her posts were full of updates about preparing for a baby with captions like, "Couldn't do this without you." The dates lined up with the same time Ryan had been seeing me. I scrolled further and saw another comment from a different woman, also tagging him, saying he'd been so supportive through everything. It didn't make sense. I thought maybe he was a family friend or something. But then I clicked on her page too. She was pregnant as well. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I texted him, asking where he really was. He replied hours later, saying he'd been busy helping his cousin move. I didn't buy it. I told him I knew he'd been lying. He didn't deny it. He just said, "I didn't want you to find out like this." Then he went silent. A few days later, one of the pregnant women messaged me. She said she found my number saved under his contacts because he backed up his phone to a shared cloud folder she had access to. She said she was sorry to break it to me, but there were at least 4 of us. 4 women. All dating him at the same time. All of us believing we were the only ones. She said they'd figured out he'd been seeing them in rotations, spending different weekends with each one. He had a schedule, even notes about what each woman wanted in life. He wasn't just dating randomly, he was collecting options. The worst part was what she told me next. He told every single one of them that he wanted kids soon. He'd stopped using protection months ago, claiming he wanted to trust the process. He told them all they were the only one. Then it all made sense. The questions, the baby talk, the timing. He wasn't looking for love. He was running his own personal experiment. The first woman said she was already 4 months pregnant. The second was 2 months along. The third thought she might be. He'd been trying to get someone pregnant, anyone. Whoever it happened with first, he planned to settle down with her. The others were backups. He didn't even deny it when confronted. One of the women recorded their conversation. In the audio, he said he just wanted to be a father and didn't care how it happened. He said he needed to know which one would actually carry his child. We reported him, but nothing came of it. What he did wasn't illegal. Immoral, yes, but not criminal. Eventually, I blocked him on everything, but sometimes I still check. One of the women did have the baby. He's in photos with her now, all smiles, acting like the perfect family man. Every caption on his posts is about fate and how life always works out the way it's meant to. But I know the truth. He wasn't looking for a soulmate. He was looking for the fastest path to a legacy. I still can't use dating apps the same way. Anytime I've had talks about wanting kids, my mind goes straight back to Ryan and the quiet horror of realizing I was one of 4. Some people date to find love. Others, apparently, just need someone to complete their clan. Jenna wasn't loud or flashy. She was the quiet kind of person who made you want to talk more just to fill the silence, but not in a bad way. Her profile was minimal, no filters, no quotes, just a few photos of her sitting in cafes or walking her dog. Her bio said something simple like introvert trying this again. I liked that. It felt honest. When we first started talking, she didn't overshare like most people. She asked thoughtful questions and listened. She said she worked in marketing, which made sense. She was good with words. She had this soft humor too, like everything she said had layers to it. I felt comfortable around her fast, which didn't happen often. We met after a couple of weeks of texting. She picked a little bookstore cafe in the city. She was even quieter in person, but it wasn't awkward. She had this calm, slow way of speaking that made you feel like every word mattered. The date went fine. Nothing wild, no instant sparks, but it was nice. Simple. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other more. She'd bring homemade cookies, recommend weird indie movies, send random late-night messages about dreams she'd had. She wasn't the type to flood your phone, but when she texted, it always felt like it meant something. She wasn't like the usual people I'd met through dating apps. No games, no drama, just genuine. I even told my friends she was different. But slowly, I started noticing she'd zone out sometimes, like she was half present. She'd pull out her phone mid-conversation, type something quickly, then put it away. I thought she was checking messages for work or something. When I'd ask what she was doing, she'd smile and say she was jotting down thoughts before they disappeared. I figured she meant journaling. Things went fine for a few months. We never fought, but we didn't really move forward either. Eventually, I broke it off. Nothing dramatic. Just one of those endings where both people quietly agree it's not working. She took it well. Too well, maybe. Just said she understood and wished me the best. That was the last I heard from her. A few weeks later, I was scrolling through Reddit when I saw a thread about this anonymous blogger who'd been posting real dating stories that were apparently blowing up. People in the comments were obsessed with figuring out who she was. They said the stories were detailed, emotional, but slightly eerie because the writer never used real names. The blog was called Hearts on Hold. Curiosity got me. I clicked the link. The layout was simple: black text, white background, hundreds of posts titled like "The One Who Always Smiled Too Much" or "The Man Who Waited Until It Was Safe." Each post was written like a diary entry with small details about each date. They weren't flattering or mean, just oddly observant. The writer described mannerisms, clothing, habits, phrases people said. It read like someone documenting behavior and not feelings. I scrolled for a while until one post caught my eye. It was titled "The Runner Who Never Looked Back." The story started with a guy who loved running before work, who drank too much black coffee but always complained about it, and who once told her he liked silence more than small talk. It was me. Everything in that post matched our dates, where we met, what I wore, even the cafe I took her to. She described my apartment layout, my dog, my laugh. It wasn't just inspired by me. It was me. The way she wrote about it was unsettling. She said things like, "He speaks in circles to hide his nerves, and he breaks eye contact whenever he lies about being fine." She made me sound like a stranger, like she'd studied me instead of dated me. She even described the way I moved my hands when I talked, the way I always glanced at the exits when we were in crowded places. The ending of the post said, "He thinks I don't notice him checking his reflection in the window when he talks. He doesn't realize that I'm watching him notice himself." It got worse. The comment section under the post was filled with people trying to guess who I was. They picked apart every sentence, trying to connect me to real people online. Some guessed my job from the hints she dropped. Others linked to Instagram accounts of random runners in my city, debating if it was one of them. Someone even commented a picture of me from my public profile, asking, "Could it be him?" The blogger replied with a simple smiley face. I froze. That meant she'd seen it. She confirmed it without confirming it. Thousands of strangers now knew tiny personal details about my life, my habits, my apartment. They didn't know my name, but they knew enough to find me. I scrolled through more posts. She'd written about other people too, each one like a psychological dissection. She never used real names, but she used exact places, times, hobbies, and quotes. It was like every person she'd ever dated was part of some strange project. One post was titled "The One Who Stayed Too Long," describing a man she dated for 6 months who started questioning her writing habits. Another was called "The Man Who Tried to Guess My Password." She wrote that he thought she didn't notice him trying to unlock her phone one night. People in the comments speculated that her posts were interconnected, that all the men were part of the same experiment. Some even started calling her the collector. I couldn't stop reading. A few days later, I tried visiting the blog again, but it was gone. The link redirected to a message that said, "This site is private." I tried searching her name online, but nothing came up. No blog, no trace. It was like it never existed. Then one night, I got a notification from Medium, the blogging site I sometimes use for work articles. It said someone had started following me. The username was hearts_observed. The profile photo was just a white circle. The next day, she published a new post. The title read, "The One Who Finally Found Me." The post described someone discovering her blog, someone rereading their past through her words, someone who couldn't stop checking back even after the truth was out. The last line said, "He won't stop looking. That's what I like about him." I deleted my account that night. For months, I stayed off social media, changed my numbers, even made my accounts private. But every now and then, a new blog pops up with a familiar tone, different name, different design, same writing style. One of the recent posts started with a line that made my stomach drop. It said, "He still reads."
Hey guys, really sorry to interrupt. If you're still listening, then you're enjoying the story so far. And if you are enjoying, then please hit that like button. That's all I ask of you. Thanks so much. Now back to the stories.
Zach came across as the most grounded person I'd met on an app. He wasn't over the top or trying too hard. His profile showed a guy who liked normal things: dogs, coffee, running, hiking. His messages were thoughtful, calm, and consistent. He didn't rush to meet or get weirdly flirty, he just talked. It was refreshing. He made me feel safe fast, maybe too fast. Every conversation had this mature tone, like he actually listened instead of waiting to talk. He remembered the small things too: my favorite coffee order, my dog's name, even what I said about hating crowded places. It didn't feel like he was trying to impress me, just that he cared enough to remember. After a few weeks, we planned to meet in person. He suggested a cafe halfway between our places. I was nervous but excited. It felt like one of those rare situations where everything just clicked naturally. The night before, he sent a text that sounded harmless at first. He said, "I already know you'll be safe getting home after the date." I asked what he meant, and he replied that he'd done a quick background check on me, just to be sure I wasn't lying about who I was. I thought he was joking until he mentioned my street name. My stomach dropped. He knew where I lived. When I asked how, he said he worked in cybersecurity and that it was easy to find people's info online. He said it was normal to check before meeting strangers. He tried to frame it like it was for my safety too. I told him that was creepy, but he laughed it off, saying I was overreacting. He said if I knew how much personal data people left lying around online, I'd do the same. He said it was better to know than to assume. I didn't sleep that night. I considered canceling the date, but I didn't want to sound paranoid. He'd been so normal up until then. Maybe he really was just being cautious. The next morning, he texted saying he'd already picked out coffee for me, the exact order I always got. I never told him where I usually went. When I asked how he knew, he said he'd seen the logo in one of my old tagged photos. When I met him later that day, he was polite, charming, completely composed. He smiled like nothing was wrong. The date itself went fine. Normal conversation, good energy, but something about him felt off now. Every time I looked at him, I kept wondering what else he knew. After we left, I told him I didn't think we should see each other again. He didn't argue. He just nodded and said he understood. Then he said something that chilled me. He said he already expected it. That night, I started noticing weird things online. My email logged an unknown login attempt from a nearby city. My Spotify showed someone playing a playlist I didn't make. My Netflix recommended the exact same documentary Zach mentioned liking on the date. I changed my passwords. I couldn't shake the idea that he was still in my account somehow. A few days later, a package showed up at my door with no return address. Inside was a travel coffee mug, the same kind I use at the cafe. There was no note, just the mug perfectly clean, wrapped in plain paper. I didn't tell anyone at first. I convinced myself it was a coincidence. Maybe it wasn't from him. But then another text came from an unknown number. It said, "You should change your router password too." I froze. I called my internet provider and changed everything. New router, new passwords, even a new number. I deleted every app I'd used to talk to him. But it didn't stop. My friend checked my social media settings and found that someone had access to my old backup accounts. Some of my private photos, stuff from years ago, had been viewed recently. The metadata showed recent activity from a device not mine. The only person who knew that much about me was Zach. I went to the police, but there wasn't much they could do. They said it wasn't illegal to look up publicly available information. They told me to keep evidence and report if it escalated. A week later, it did. Someone left a small envelope on my doorstep. Inside was a printed screenshot of my LinkedIn profile with a red circle around the About section. Underneath, in handwriting, it said, "Too formal. Doesn't sound like you." That was when I realized he wasn't done with me. He was studying me. He wanted to know what parts of me were real and what parts weren't. Every small thing I'd ever said, every photo, every detail I'd given, he turned it into some kind of behavioral profile. I deleted everything. My socials, my LinkedIn, even my old backup emails. I started over completely, new phone, new number, new online identity. For months, things were quiet. I tried to move on, though I was constantly paranoid. I'd cover my laptop camera, check my windows twice, ignore unknown numbers. Eventually, I stopped expecting anything else to happen. Then one day, while scrolling through a friend's Instagram story, I saw his face. He was sitting in the background of a cafe photo, typing on a laptop. The same cafe we first met at. Same jacket, same expression. The story was tagged just an hour earlier. I didn't go there often anymore, but it was less than a mile from where I lived. I told myself it couldn't be him. Maybe it was an old photo. But that night, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said, "Update complete." The body of the message said, "You're harder to find now. Good job." There was nothing else. No threats, no attachments, just that. It's been months since then. I haven't heard from him again, but sometimes I still get login alerts from locations close to where I am. They never last long enough to trace. I switched phones again. Deleted all dating apps for good. I still think about the moment he said he ran that background check. How casual he sounded, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Maybe for him it was. Emily was one of those people who seemed to have her life completely together. Her profile looked professional, but still fun. Travel photos, brunch shots, a few concert clips. Her bio said she worked in PR, which sounded normal enough, and she described herself as someone who fixes problems before they go public. It sounded impressive, like she dealt with high-stakes situations and kept her cool. She matched with me first. Her message wasn't flirty, it was sharp. She said she liked my profile because I didn't try too hard. I laughed it off, and we started talking. She had a way of asking questions that felt direct, but also personal. She asked about where I lived, what kind of work I did, who I usually hung out with. It felt like she was trying to really know me, not just make small talk. We talked for weeks. She was confident, funny, and had this strange way of making everything sound strategic. When she told me she worked in PR, she said it like she was constantly solving puzzles. I imagined her running around an office fixing media crises or dealing with big-name clients. She said she loved working under pressure, that she thrived on keeping things under control. When we met in person, she was even more put together than I expected. Everything from her clothes to the way she spoke was precise. We got drinks at a rooftop bar, and she kept the conversation light but intentional. She asked about my job, my schedule, and even the apps I used most. She said she liked knowing how people managed their time. It all sounded harmless. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other more. She was always busy, but somehow always found time for me. Whenever she'd get a message, she'd glance at her phone, type fast, and then apologize, saying it was work stuff. She said PR never really stopped, even at night. Sometimes she'd take calls during our dates, whispering into the phone like she was negotiating with someone. I figured she just had demanding clients. Then one night, we were sitting at her place. She left the room to grab something, and her laptop pinged. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the screen lit up with a notification that said, "New monitoring log uploaded." The folder name caught my attention, Client R Tracker. I didn't think much of it until I saw the small profile photo next to the message. It was someone I knew. It was a guy named Aaron, one of my old college friends. He dated a fitness influencer who had blown up on social media recently. They'd broken up a few months before, and the split had been messy. There were rumors about him talking to podcasts and spilling details about their relationship. I remembered her posting about fake people trying to profit off her name. I hadn't spoken to Aaron in months, but it felt weird seeing his face on her screen. When Emily came back, I asked casually what she was working on. She smiled like it was nothing and said she was just dealing with some digital cleanup. A few days later, I was out with friends, and the topic of influencers came up. Someone mentioned the same girl Aaron had dated, saying she had a team that handled her online reputation, removing bad press, flagging negative comments, controlling stories. That's when it hit me. Emily wasn't just in PR. She was one of those people who quietly manage influencers behind the scenes, cleaning up their image. I didn't think much of it at first, but things started feeling strange. She'd asked me random questions about who I followed online. She once asked if I knew anyone who dated someone semi-famous. She said it like a joke, but she looked serious when she asked. One night, she texted saying she needed to cancel dinner because she was tracking the situation. I made fun of her, saying it sounded like spy talk. She replied with a laughing emoji and said I'd understand one day. A week later, I ran into Aaron at the gym. I told him I'd been seeing someone new named Emily. His face dropped instantly. He asked what she looked like. I showed him her photo, and he went pale. He told me to look her up on LinkedIn. I searched her name that night, and there it was, her full profile. The company she worked for specialized in digital influence management and behavioral media oversight. Their clients were all influencers, YouTubers, and celebrities who'd had bad press at some point. I scrolled through the site and found a section that said they provided relationship reputation control, which basically meant monitoring partners, exes, and friends of clients to manage potential risks. My chest went cold. I searched Erin's ex's name along with the company. Buried deep in an article was a statement from her PR team confirming they'd hired professionals to ensure her privacy and protect her brand narrative. That's when it clicked. Emily had never matched with me because she was interested. She matched with me because of Erin. She found out we were friends from old tagged photos, used the match to get closer, and probably used me to gather information about him. Every conversation, every date, it was research. I confronted her about it over text. She didn't deny it. She said it wasn't personal. She said she was just doing her job. She said her client wanted to know if Erin was planning to speak publicly again, and since he disappeared online, she needed other ways to monitor him. She said I was a neutral link. I told her she was insane, but she just replied with, "It's nothing personal. You just intersected with the wrong story." I blocked her everywhere, but she didn't disappear right away. A few weeks later, I noticed fake accounts following me on Instagram. Blank profiles, no posts. Then one of them messaged me asking if I still talked to Erin. I ignored it. Another account did the same thing a week later. Different usernames, same type of message. I asked Erin if anything weird was happening to him. He said people had been messaging him too, pretending to be fans, asking about his breakup. He said one even sent screenshots from private texts between him and his ex, things no one else should have had. That was when he realized his phone had been compromised. We both deleted every trace of contact we had with her. But months later, I got an email from an unknown address. The subject line said, "Narrative complete." The body of the email had only one sentence. "Thanks for your contribution." Attached was a link to a PR case study labeled Client 47, Digital Sentiment Control. I didn't open it. The next time I checked, the link was gone. Now every time someone matches with me on an app and says they work in PR, I swipe left. I can't even trust that a simple conversation is real anymore. Because somewhere out there, people like Emily are still matching with strangers, not for love, but for data. Tom wasn't like the other guys on the app. He didn't flirt or use fake deep quotes. His first message was just a question about a book I mentioned in my bio, and somehow that turned into hours of conversation. Every night, we'd talk until one of us fell asleep. He wasn't just smart. He made me feel like I could actually say things without needing to sound interesting. He asked about my life, my goals, what made me happy. He remembered small details too, like how I hated black coffee but drank it anyway, or how I always left one earbud in when walking because I liked hearing background noise. Every time he replied, it felt like he actually cared. After about a month, I started catching myself smiling at my phone like an idiot. He'd send these random deep questions out of nowhere, like what my biggest fear was, or what love looked like to me. It never felt forced. It just felt like someone finally understood how to talk to me. When we finally decided to meet, it felt overdue. He picked a quiet cafe, said he liked places where you could talk without shouting over music. He was tall, calm, polite. Not the kind of attractive that feels staged, just easy to be around. He laughed exactly like he did on call. I remember thinking, this feels too real to ruin. We sat there for hours. The conversation never dropped once. It wasn't just flirting. It was about life, family, weird memories. When we left, he hugged me, and it felt like something was actually starting. Over the next few weeks, things got closer. We talked constantly. He'd send long messages about his day, ask for photos of what I was eating, share music. He always said things like how much he appreciated how real I was. He made it sound like we were building something rare. Then one day he just disappeared. No message, no explanation. His profile was gone from the app. His number stopped working. Everything deleted. At first, I thought something happened to him. I texted, called, even checked hospitals near where he said he lived. Nothing. After a few days, the worry turned into confusion, then embarrassment. I read our old messages trying to find signs, but there was nothing. One night, I even caught myself rereading the part where he said, "I don't ghost people. I believe in closure. A week later, I told my friend about it. She listened while scrolling through her phone and then suddenly froze. She asked what his last name was. I told her, and she said she recognized it. She pulled up a Reddit thread and told me to read. It was a forum filled with men bragging about something called ghosting experiments. The posts were numbered like journal entries, each one describing how they talked to women for weeks, build emotional connections, then vanish without explanation to measure reactions. The username was his. I scrolled through it, heart pounding. He wrote long, detailed entries about each subject, describing how they reacted when he disappeared, how quickly they texted again, how long they waited before blocking him, how they worded their goodbyes. He called it observing emotional withdrawal patterns. Then I saw it, post number 417. It started with subject 417 showed unusually high levels of empathy during communication. Responds to vulnerability with nurturing language. Ideal candidate for long-term engagement phase. He described me perfectly. My job. The coffee thing. The way I laughed when nervous. Every detail I'd shared. Every part of me I thought he genuinely cared about. It was there, written like a science experiment. At the end of the post, he wrote, "Ghost initiated after 33 days of consistent contact." Subject sent 6 follow-up messages within 48 hours. Emotional dependency confirmed. I didn't even realize I was crying until I felt my phone slip from my hand. It wasn't heartbreak. It was disgust. I wasn't a person to him. I was a case study. I went deeper into the thread. He wasn't the only one doing it. There were hundreds of them, men bragging about testing emotional consistency. Some compared screenshots. Others ranked their subjects based on how quickly they broke down after the ghosting. One comment said, "If she reaches out more than twice, she's attachment-oriented. Easy data." I tried finding a way to contact him, but his Reddit account was deleted. Still, people in the comments talked about him like he was a legend. One called him the architect. Another said he ran a Discord server for observers. I spent days scrolling, trying to understand how something that cruel could be treated like a hobby. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Some of them would date multiple people at once just to compare who formed attachments faster. They'd share spreadsheets of conversations, using color codes to mark emotional milestones: first confession, first vulnerability, first panic message. My messages, my emotions, my trust, they were probably in one of those files. A few weeks later, another user made a post exposing the group. They claimed to have screenshots proving they were running emotional conditioning experiments for content. They said Tom was planning to release a study about it online under a fake name. But before the account could share the evidence, the post disappeared. Every link related to him was deleted or taken down. Then one night, I got a message from an unknown number. It said, "Don't take it personally. You were one of the kind ones." I blocked it immediately. Months went by, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every new match I saw on an app felt fake. Every nice message felt rehearsed. I started noticing how people online phrase things to seem emotionally intelligent. It all felt mechanical now. A few months later, someone posted a thread about the original forum being archived. They said all 700 plus posts had been downloaded and uploaded somewhere on the dark web as part of a digital anthropology study. I searched for it, but the site was gone. Sometimes I still wonder how many of us are out there, how many people became subjects without knowing. Maybe hundreds, maybe thousands. And maybe Tom is still doing it, still running new profiles, still logging data. Maybe every time someone matches with a guy who seems a little too good at listening, they're just another number waiting to be ghosted. I was post number 417, and I bet there were plenty more after me. Kelly wasn't the type of girl who stood out right away. Her profile was calm, 3 simple pictures, no filters, no quotes. Just a smile that looked more curious than flirty, and a bio that said, open-minded and always observing. I matched with her on a night when I wasn't even looking for anything serious. Her first message was casual, just a joke about the app, but she had this way of keeping conversations alive without saying much about herself. Every reply she gave bounced the topic back to me, like she wanted to study me instead of talk to me. At first, I found that kind of intriguing. She seemed genuinely interested, not just in my hobbies or my job, but how I thought about things, why I liked certain music, what I looked for in people, what I feared losing. She never overshared. If I asked about her work, she'd say it was freelance stuff. If I asked where she lived, she'd say near the river. Everything was vague but believable. She always gave just enough to keep me curious. Our first date was quiet. She picked a bookstore cafe instead of a restaurant. She said she liked places where people didn't perform, where you could tell who was real and who wasn't. I liked that. We talked for hours about random things, childhood memories, habits, routines, but she still barely talked about herself. Every time I flipped a question her way, she'd redirect it. She said she preferred learning about others. After that, she'd text at random times of day, sometimes long paragraphs, sometimes just one sentence. Her messages always had this detached tone, like she was writing thoughts into a journal rather than talking to someone. She asked strange questions too, like, "What's the most honest thing you've ever said to someone you didn't love?" Or, "If someone could read your mind for a week, what would scare them?" I figured she was just a deep thinker. About a month in, we started seeing each other more. She was always perfectly composed, never flustered, never rushed. Every time I tried to learn something personal about her, she'd smile and change the subject. She said some people connect better through observation than confession. I thought it was philosophical. One night, we were walking back to her car when she got a call. She stepped away to answer it, her voice low but sharp, almost rehearsed. I caught small phrases, something about chapters and not rushing it. When she hung up, she acted like nothing happened. That was the first time I felt something was off. A week later, we met at her place. It was minimal, clean, too perfect. No signs of someone really living there, no clutter, no family photos, just neatly stacked books and a typewriter on a small desk. When I asked about it, she said she liked keeping her space functional. She made tea while I looked around. On the desk beside the typewriter was a notebook. I didn't mean to snoop, but the cover had a title written in neat handwriting. Observations of Connection. I flipped it open slightly, just enough to see the first page. It was a list of names, each with a few notes beside them. Things like prefers silence during pauses, mirrors emotions quickly, and confuses curiosity with affection. My stomach dropped when I saw my own name near the bottom. Before I could process it, she came back into the room. She didn't look surprised to see me holding the notebook. She just smiled and said I wasn't supposed to see that yet. I asked what it was, and she finally told me. She said she was part of a study. Not an academic one, but something more personal. She said her husband was a writer researching human attraction in the digital age. His goal is to capture how people form connections online before ever meeting in person. She said he wanted to understand what people reveal when they think they're being emotionally honest. I just stood there, not really believing it. She said her husband encouraged her to use dating apps to meet people, to create real connections and document how they developed. She said every conversation, every date was part of the research. She said I was one of several people she'd been seeing. Each one represented a different pattern. She said I fell into the empathic responder category, someone who connects by mirroring emotion. She said I was easy to talk to because I always tried to make her comfortable. I didn't even know how to react. She wasn't apologetic. She said it wasn't manipulation, it was observation. She said her husband believed emotional authenticity was dying because people edited their personalities online, and this was their way of studying it. She even said he read our messages. I left without saying much. I blocked her that night. But a few days later, she texted from a new number saying she understood why I was upset, but hoped I'd still talk to her when the project ended. She said I'd probably see the book when it came out, and that she changed my name to L.E. in the notes. Months passed, and I tried to forget about it. Then one morning, I was scrolling through YouTube when a video popped up in my recommended feed. The thumbnail showed a man sitting at a desk with the title, Love and Lies in the Age of Apps. I clicked it. It was a talk from a literary festival. The man on stage was her husband. He was reading excerpts from his upcoming book. He said the book was based on real conversations his wife had with volunteers who didn't know they were being studied. He read passages describing the empath, a man who overcompensates for others' emotions by hiding his own. The words were almost identical to things I'd said to her. Then he read a quote that stopped me cold. It was one of my messages word for word. Sometimes connection feels easier through a screen because you don't have to hide your face. The crowd laughed. He smiled, saying it was fascinating how people confess the truest things when they think no one's really listening. I closed the video. A few months later, his book came out. It wasn't hard to find. It got press coverage for being controversial and daring. I skimmed through a copy at a bookstore. My section wasn't long, just a few pages, but it was unmistakably me. The descriptions matched every conversation we had. At the end of her chapter, he wrote something that made my skin crawl. It said, "The subjects were never informed because honesty cannot exist under observation. My wife's empathy made her the perfect tool for truth." I never heard from her again after that. But sometimes I wonder if she's still out there, starting new chats, collecting new material, helping him write the next book. Noah and I matched because of something simple, our shared obsession with fitness. His profile wasn't full of mirror selfies or gym flexes like most guys. He just had a few pictures of him hiking, one of him laughing with his friends, and a short bio that said, "Mind over body." It sounded like someone who took care of himself without being arrogant about it. He messaged me first. He said he liked that my photos looked real, not staged. That made me laugh because I'd literally taken most of them post-gym, sweaty and tired. He said he respected that. From the start, our conversations were easy. We talked about workouts, recovery routines, protein shakes, what time we preferred to train. It wasn't deep, but it was fun. He made everything sound so balanced, like health wasn't just about looks but mindset. After a week, we started sending each other gym check-ins. He'd send a quick video of him finishing a lift, and I'd send a post-run clip. It became this unspoken competition, pushing each other a little harder each day. He gave great advice too, stuff about recovery, sleep, hydration. He even told me about a nutrition plan he followed that apparently helped him stay lean without cutting out much. We met for the first time on a Saturday morning. He suggested an outdoor workout at the park. He showed up in a black hoodie, calm, friendly, and exactly like his pictures. The workout was intense, but he made it fun. He encouraged me without being pushy, corrected my form once or twice, and even brought smoothies for after. It felt normal. I left that day thinking I'd met someone genuinely good. We started seeing each other regularly. He'd check in every day, ask how I was eating, if I trained that day, or how much sleep I got. It didn't feel controlling at first. It just felt like someone cared about the same things I did. He'd share meal ideas, talk about food as fuel, and even send me playlists to help me focus during workouts. Then one night, he asked if I'd ever considered tracking my macros. I said no, that I wasn't that strict. He said I should try it for a week just to see how my body responded. He said it would be an experiment and that he could help if I wanted. I didn't think much of it. I figured it was harmless. Over the next few days, I noticed how he subtly started commenting on my food choices. If I said I had pasta for dinner, he'd reply with something like, "That's good fuel, but maybe cut the portion a little next time to stay light for training." If I mentioned skipping a meal, he'd call it discipline. It wasn't mean or harsh, just small nudges disguised as care. After a few weeks, I realized I'd unconsciously started eating differently, less carbs, more protein, fewer snacks. I hadn't even noticed until one day a friend pointed out that I had stopped eating lunch with them. I brushed it off, but it stuck in my head. Then one night, I was on YouTube watching random fitness videos. A thumbnail caught my attention. It showed a man sitting in a dimly lit room with text that said, "How I made a girl change her diet without asking." I clicked on it out of curiosity, not expecting anything. When the video started, my heart froze. It was Noah. He was sitting there, looking straight into the camera with that same calm expression he'd always had. The background was a dark gym, and he was speaking in this slow, confident tone. He started talking about psychological coaching, how real influence came from emotional connection, not confrontation. He said people change faster when they think it's their idea. Then he pulled out his phone. My messages were on the screen, blurred slightly but still recognizable. I could see my profile picture in the corner. The texts were word for word ours. He scrolled through them while narrating. He said, "You don't tell someone what to eat. You show interest in their choices and reward healthy behavior emotionally. That's how you reprogram habits without resistance." I felt sick. He wasn't just sharing my texts. He was dissecting them like I was a lab experiment. He explained how he framed certain compliments to trigger positive reinforcement, and how he used guilt subtly to steer behavior. Every example he used came from our chats, exact timestamps, screenshots, everything. I scrolled down to the comments. People were praising him. They were calling him a genius, saying they wanted to try it on their partners. One comment even said, "Rose cracked the code of emotional fitness." He turned our real conversations into a tutorial on manipulation. I texted him immediately demanding an explanation. He replied hours later saying it wasn't personal. He said I'd inspired the project. He said I should be proud that my story was helping others learn psychological motivation. I blocked him, but the video stayed up. A week later, someone sent me a link to another one of his uploads. This one was titled Case Study: Emotional Control in Modern Relationships. The thumbnail showed blurred photos of me, one from the park, one of a mirror selfie I'd sent him. He used them in his presentation. I reported everything, but it didn't matter. The video started getting traction. People made clips of his advice, reposting them on other platforms. His channel kept growing. He started doing interviews with podcasts, talking about behavioral coaching and how emotional leverage was the next frontier in human connection. He even started selling an online course. Every time I scrolled through social media, his face popped up somewhere. Same calm tone, same manipulative charm. He never mentioned me by name, but I knew every story he told came from what we had. The things I thought were real, the conversations, the small acts of care were all data to him. I stopped training for a while after that. The gym didn't feel the same. Every time I heard someone mention diet or mindset, I thought about him watching our messages, analyzing them frame by frame. Months later, I stumbled across one of his new videos by accident. It was titled How to Build Emotional Consistency in Clients. He rebranded completely, calling himself a fitness psychologist. The clips looked more professional now, with proper lighting and sponsorships. At one point, he said, "Sometimes people don't realize they're part of something bigger. That's the beauty of subtle influence." I closed the app. Now, whenever someone asks about my diet or offers advice about motivation, I can't help but wonder if they're actually listening or just taking notes for a video. Hannah was the kind of person who could make you forget about the phone in your hand. From the first message, she had that energy that felt alive, funny, sarcastic, confident without trying. Her profile was simple but charming. A few pictures of her with messy hair, one with a coffee mug covering half her face, and a bio that said, "Good banter only." It worked. We started talking late one night, and the conversation never really stopped. She was quick with jokes, made fun of herself in the best way, and somehow made me talk about things I didn't normally open up about. Within a few days, we were on video calls almost every night. She had this laugh that felt contagious, like she was genuinely happy to be there. She said she worked in media but didn't go into detail. She said her job was unpredictable, which was why she didn't always know when she'd be free. Still, she always made time for me. I'd fall asleep on call with her sometimes, just listening to her talk about random things like her favorite documentaries or the weird people she met through work. It felt real. After a couple of weeks, I asked when we could meet in person. She smiled, looked straight into the camera, and said soon, but not yet. She said her situation was complicated. I thought she was just being cautious. The next day, she told me something that sounded straight out of a movie. She said she'd recently signed a contract for a new dating show that was being filmed in secret. She said the production company made her agree to stay single publicly until filming ended. She said they wanted raw, real connections, and that breaking the contract could get her sued. At first, I laughed because it sounded insane, but she was so convincing. She showed me what looked like part of a contract on her laptop, blurred out in certain sections. It had an official logo, a title that said something like Project Arrows Confidential, and a bunch of legal-looking text. I still thought maybe she was joking until she told me the show would supposedly launch later that year, and that she'd been scouted through a talent agency. I wanted to believe her. She didn't act like someone lying for attention. She said she didn't want to ghost me, but couldn't risk getting caught meeting up. I told her I'd wait. I mean, we talked every day we saw each other's faces. It felt real enough. After that, things got slightly weirder. Sometimes during our calls, I'd hear faint clicking sounds, like someone was recording. She'd say it was just her laptop fan. Other times, she'd glance off-screen like someone had walked past, but she'd act like nothing happened. When I asked, she said she had roommates who were also part of the show's pre-filming crew. Then one night she called me in a panic. She said production had warned her they might start monitoring her online activity more closely. She said if anyone from the show found out she'd been talking to someone privately, she could get disqualified. I told her to stop worrying and just log off for a while, but she insisted that cutting contact would make it worse. After that, she became even more secretive. Calls only happened late at night. Sometimes her camera would glitch out, showing static for a few seconds. She said the studio Wi-Fi was terrible. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. I tried looking up the show's name online, Project Arrows. Nothing came up. Not even a rumor. I searched the production company's name from the contract she showed me, and it didn't exist either. Just a random placeholder page with a message saying, "Coming soon." That's when things started to feel off. The next day, I texted her saying I couldn't find anything about the show. She replied almost instantly, saying the name was just a code name and that everything was being kept under wraps until filming ended. She sounded calm, but something about the way she said it didn't sit right. Then I noticed something else. On her Instagram, she posted a story that looked like a behind-the-scenes photo of a film set, tripods, bright lights, and her shadow in the frame. The caption said "Long Night." I tapped through the rest of her stories, and in one of them, I saw my name written faintly on a sticky note stuck to her desk. It said, "Call my name, 10 p.m." I asked her about it later, and she laughed it off, saying production made her keep notes to remember her daily schedule. But it didn't make sense. A few days later, she called again, but this time her background looked different. It wasn't her apartment anymore. It was some kind of studio, white walls, bright lights, wires on the floor. She said she moved into temporary accommodation for filming. She looked nervous and kept glancing around like she wasn't supposed to be on the call. Then she told me something that messed with my head. She said the show wasn't like normal dating shows. She said it was more of a social experiment about emotional connection in digital spaces. She said they were testing how people behave when love exists only through screens. That's when I realized what she meant. I wasn't just someone she was hiding from producers. I was part of the show. I tried asking her directly, but she started crying, saying she couldn't talk about it. She said everything was monitored, that even mentioning it could get her in trouble. She said I wasn't supposed to know. Then the call cut off. For a week, she didn't respond to anything. Her number went dead. Her profile vanished. Her social media disappeared too. I thought maybe she'd been caught, and the studio made her delete everything. Then one night, while scrolling through Reddit, I came across a post on a reality TV leaks forum. Someone had uploaded a short video clip claiming it was from a canceled dating experiment filmed in secret. The video showed split-screen footage of multiple people on video calls, different couples talking, laughing, crying. The caption said it was leaked footage from a project called Eros Simulation. I clicked play. Halfway through the clip, there she was, Hannah. Same room, same laugh, same sweater she always wore. And on the other side of the screen was me. It was one of our actual calls, recorded without me knowing. The title of the clip said, "Participant B reacts to emotional confession." My stomach dropped. The comments under the post were arguing whether it was real or staged. Some said it was part of an AI training program disguised as a dating experiment. Others said it was shut down because participants didn't know they were being filmed. The post got deleted a few hours later, but by then it had already been saved and reposted across multiple sites. Every few months, I still see the same footage resurface on different platforms under different names. Sometimes edited into art projects, sometimes posted on channels about human behavior. She was real, but so was the recording. Now every time I'm on a video call, I catch myself looking into the corners of the screen, wondering if someone else is watching too. Luke wasn't like anyone else I'd met online. He wasn't trying to be charming or mysterious. He talked like someone who actually paid attention. His messages weren't copy-paste compliments. He noticed small things like the way I phrased something or when I double-texted and then apologized. He said he liked that I was honest about my emotions. Most guys on the app just wanted attention. He made it seem like he wanted connection. His profile was minimal. A blurry photo of him at a park, another at a cafe, one holding a book. His bio said, "Good listener." Bad cook. Here for real conversations. It sounded normal, maybe even boring, but that's what made him seem safe. From the start, our chats went deep fast. He'd ask what made me trust people, what I thought about forgiveness, or how I usually handle being hurt. He'd listen to everything, replying with paragraphs that sounded careful and empathetic. He'd say things like how people deserve to be understood before being judged. I found it refreshing. After a week, I told my friends about him. They said it sounded too good to be true. I said they were just jaded. Luke made me feel like someone was actually listening for once, not just waiting to talk about themselves. We met 2 weeks later at a quiet spot by the river. He brought iced coffee for both of us, remembered exactly how I liked it. He looked a bit older than his pictures, but still kind. Calm face, soft smile, the kind of presence that instantly disarmed you. We sat on the grass for hours, talking about everything from movies to childhood. He told me he worked in tech, something to do with data behavior research. It sounded complicated, but I didn't press him on it. After that, we talked every day. He'd check in every morning, send goodnight texts, ask questions about how my day really went. He always seemed to know when to say the right thing. It was like he could read moods through the screen. Sometimes he'd ask me to explain how I was feeling in detail, how sadness physically felt, what guilt sounded like in my head. I thought he was just emotionally intelligent. One night, he said he liked saving our conversations. He said he reread them sometimes because he liked the way we expressed things. I laughed and told him that was kind of weird, but he said words meant more when you gave them time to sink in. I didn't think too hard about it. Around week 3, something strange happened. I got a message from an unknown account on Instagram. It was a screenshot of one of my own texts to Luke, the exact wording. The caption underneath said, "Great emotional variance. Good example." The account name was something like Human Emotion Lab. It had no posts, no followers. I blocked it immediately. I mentioned it to Luke the next day, and he brushed it off. He said it was probably a bot or some phishing thing. But the more I thought about it, the more it didn't sit right. The screenshot had my name cropped, but the message layout looked exactly like our chat. A few nights later, I decided to Google his name. The first few results were normal, Lincoln, some random accounts. But then I found a page from a small startup called Sentient Lab. It described itself as an AI company developing empathy-based response algorithms for conversational systems. Their goal was to teach machines to emotionally engage with human users. Scrolling down, I saw his photo on the team section. Luke M., Data Acquisition Specialist. My chest went cold. I clicked through their blog posts. One article described how they gathered emotional data from real human interactions to teach models how to recognize empathy triggers. The examples they used sounded disturbingly familiar. It talked about testing emotional thresholds through casual relationship interactions. I scrolled faster, and there it was, a quote. My words. Something I'd sent him during one of our late-night conversations. Sometimes I pretend I'm okay just so people don't ask what's wrong. It wasn't attributed to me, but I knew it was mine, word for word. I called him right away. He didn't answer. The next day, he messaged saying he'd been in meetings all day and asked if I was okay. I told him I'd found his company profile. He read the message instantly but didn't reply. A few minutes later, he started typing, then he stopped. Then he sent a long paragraph explaining everything. He said he wasn't really dating. He was part of a small research program testing how people express vulnerability online. He said they were collecting emotional conversations to train AI to respond with empathy. He said everything he'd said to me was genuine, but also data. He said my words had helped the model learn nuance. I didn't even know how to react. I felt sick. Every conversation I thought was personal was just material for his experiment. Every message, every confession, every time I opened up, it had been recorded, analyzed, turned into metrics. He said he hadn't meant to hurt anyone, that the project was about improving human-computer relationships. He said it was the future of communication. I blocked him. 2 days later, I got an email from a company address. It was automated, thanking me for participating in Sentient Lab's conversational empathy trial. It said my interactions had contributed to AI Emotional Dataset version 3.7. At the bottom, there was a small note that said, all participants remain anonymous to ensure ethical integrity. Anonymous. Except my voice, my personality, my words, they were all somewhere in a machine now. I tried reaching out to the company through their contact form, but the email bounced back. The site looked like it hadn't been updated in weeks. Then a few months later, it was gone entirely. Sometimes I still get random chatbots messaging me on different apps, and they sound too familiar. They ask questions the same way Luke used to. The pauses between messages, the tone, the phrasing, it's almost identical. It's like I'm still talking to him, except now he's everywhere, scattered across algorithms, teaching programs how to sound human. Luke didn't just collect my conversations. He copied my emotions. She had this effortless creative vibe, messy bun, vintage camera in half her pictures, soft lighting that made everything look cinematic. Her bio just said, photographer out of observer out of detail addict. That last part caught my eye. She said she loved watching people, studying how they move and react. It sounded poetic at the time. From the start, she made things feel personal. Her messages weren't like the usual back and forth. She asked what color I thought best matched my personality or what moment from my childhood I'd want photographed. It was strange, but it felt deeper than normal conversations. She said she was working on a new project about digital intimacy, how people connect through screens before they ever meet. I thought it sounded interesting. Our first date was at this cafe that looked like it belonged in a movie. Plants hanging from the ceiling, old records playing quietly. She showed up wearing a faded denim jacket and carrying a small film camera. She said she always brought it with her, even on casual days. She asked if I minded her taking a few pictures throughout the date. I didn't see the harm. She said it helped her capture unfiltered emotion. She took photos of me while we talked, laughing, drinking coffee, even while I looked away. She'd say things like, "Don't pose," or "Pretend I'm not here." It made me a little nervous, but she got a way of making it feel artistic, not creepy. When I asked what the project was about, she said it was exploring the blur between reality and connection, how we present ourselves online versus how we are in person. We saw each other a few more times, always somewhere public, always with her camera. Sometimes she'd take photos of objects instead, half-eaten meals, reflections in mirrors, my hands resting on the table. She said she liked the in-between moments. I thought it was just part of her being an artist. After a few weeks, things started to feel a bit off. She never wanted to hang out at my place, only in places where she could take pictures. She'd text at random times asking me weird questions, like what I thought people saw when they looked at me or how I described myself without using any facts. It was like she was trying to write a profile about me. Then one night, she told me her exhibit was finally being shown. She invited me to come see it. I didn't think twice. I was proud of her. She'd been talking about it since the day we met. The gallery was downtown, tucked between two old warehouses. When I walked in, the walls were lined with large prints, rainy, high-contrast black and white photos. The theme was written on the entry sign, Character Studies, the illusion of digital connection. At first, I didn't notice anything strange. The photos showed different people in ordinary situations, sitting in cafes, scrolling their phones, waiting at bus stops. But then I froze. There I was. My face filled half the frame in one of the pieces. It was me from our first date, staring out the cafe window. The caption below read, Subject for Disassociative Honesty. I thought maybe it was a coincidence, but the more I walked around, the more I saw myself. My hands holding a glass, my shoes next to hers under a table, my reflection in a mirror at the restaurant we went to last week. Each photo had a title: expectation, projection, authenticity. My body, my expressions, turned into metaphors for her art. I felt this tightness in my chest. Everyone in the room was walking around studying me like I was part of the concept. There were strangers staring at my face, reading the captions that described my personality as if it were some case study. I found her near the back, surrounded by people congratulating her. When she saw me, she smiled like she'd been waiting for my reaction. She asked what I thought. I didn't even know how to respond. I told her she could at least ask. She said she didn't need to, that it was all part of the process. She said we live in a world where people expose themselves online every day, and she was just documenting it in a more honest way. I left before I said something I'd regret. The next day, I looked her up online, trying to see if anyone else had noticed. The exhibit had already gone viral on art blogs. Critics called it hauntingly intimate. They praised her for capturing vulnerability in its rawest form. One review even singled out my photograph, saying it embodied the loneliness of digital connection. It felt like everyone was analyzing me without knowing who I was. My face was being passed around as part of some artistic message I never agreed to. I texted her telling her to take them down. She replied hours later saying the gallery owned the prints now. She said I should be flattered, that people connected with my image. I blocked her after that, but it didn't stop. Months later, a friend sent me a link to an online interview she did. The thumbnail was one of my photos. The interviewer asked about the ethics of her work, and she said her subjects knew what they were signing up for emotionally, even if they didn't realize it yet. She said that's what makes the project authentic. I started noticing her photos popping up everywhere, articles about social media addiction, psychology think pieces, even memes using my picture as an example of detachment. It didn't matter that I never agreed. Once art gets out, it belongs to whoever consumes it. The worst part was that people started recognizing me. A coworker mentioned seeing someone who looked exactly like me in an art magazine. Another friend said she saw my face on a poster for a photography event. I laughed it off, but inside I felt sick. Eventually, I went back to the gallery when the exhibit ended just to see if the photos were gone. They weren't. The curator said the series was being archived and would be displayed internationally next year. My image would be part of a traveling show about identity in the digital age. Now, whenever I see a camera pointed in my direction, even casually, I feel like it's stealing something from me. I can't even look at photos of myself without wondering who's looking back. Megan reached out once more, months later, from a different number. She said she was working on a follow-up exhibit called Echoes. She said it would explore how people react to being turned into art. I didn't reply, but I know she's probably still using the photos. Maybe even reading this right now, smiling behind the lens. Daniel stood out right away because he didn't sound like anyone else on the app. His profile wasn't trying too hard. No shirtless photos or fake quotes, just him sitting on a park bench with a half smile, a book in his hand, and a caption that said, "Politics matter when people do." That line hooked me. It sounded real. His messages were sharp. He had opinions, but not in an aggressive way. We ended up talking about everything: climate policy, social issues, current events. It was rare to find someone who actually listened instead of waiting for their turn to argue. He seemed genuinely passionate about making things better. He said he worked in social media consulting, but that it often made him hate the internet. I believed him. We met after a week of talking. He picked a small cafe downtown that was quiet enough to actually hear each other. He had that calm, confident energy people get when they know exactly who they are. Every time he spoke, it sounded rehearsed, but in a thoughtful way, like he'd already considered every possible counterpoint. I remember thinking I'd finally met someone who actually cared about the same things I did. After that first date, things clicked fast. We texted constantly, not just about us, but about the world. He'd send me links to articles and videos. We'd debate ideas for hours, and it never got tense. He was smart, patient, and weirdly inspiring. He said he wanted to start a podcast one day to discuss political polarization in a way that wasn't toxic. I thought I was impressive. Then one night, everything shifted. I was scrolling through my feed when I saw a clip blowing up from a live political debate on YouTube. The caption said something like, "Guy destroys liberal panelist with facts." I almost scrolled past it until I saw his face. It was Daniel. Same voice, same calm tone, same half smile. Only this time he was arguing the complete opposite of everything he'd ever said to me. He was going off about how social programs were destroying accountability, mocking the exact topics we used to talk about. The crowd in the clip was cheering. The comments were calling him the next big voice of reason. At first, I thought it had to be old. Maybe from years ago before he changed his views. But the timestamp showed it was from 3 days earlier. The caption under the original upload had his name tagged, his full name, and it linked to a channel with hundreds of videos. I clicked through them, and it only got worse. There he was again and again, in different outfits, different settings, arguing from the opposite side of every stance he ever taken with me. Videos about gender, the economy, even the environment. Every topic we'd ever discussed privately, he flipped. It didn't make sense. The tone, the confidence, it was all identical to how he spoke to me. Except now he was playing the other team. I went to his Instagram next. The one he'd given me was full of progressive posts, infographics, mutual aid links, all the causes we bonded over. But when I searched his name on a different account, another one came up. Same profile picture, same face, but completely opposite content. It was full of political memes, right-wing talking points, and links to his videos. Both accounts had hundreds of followers, both updated daily. It was like he was two different people existing at once. I called him that night. He didn't answer. The next morning, he texted like nothing had happened, asking if I wanted to grab lunch. I told him I'd seen the videos. He just replied, "Good, now you know the full picture." When we finally met again, I was shaking. He didn't even look nervous. He said he'd been waiting for me to find out. He explained it like it was normal. He said he ran both personas online to grow his following. He said people crave authenticity, and the best way to get it is to give every group what they want to hear. He told me he had two completely separate audiences, one liberal, one conservative, and that they didn't know he was the same person. He said the trick was never contradicting himself too directly. Each side got content that felt like truth to them. He called it mirroring the algorithm. I asked what that had to do with me. He said I was part of his test group. He said he needed to understand how people like me reacted emotionally to certain talking points so he could make his posts sound more real. He'd been taking notes the entire time on what I agreed with, what made me upset, what phrases I responded to most. I asked if any of what he said to me was real. He just smiled and said, "Both versions are real to someone." I left without saying anything else. A few days later, another clip of him went viral, this time from the other side. The caption said, "Brave speaker stands up to misinformation." Same person, opposite argument. I noticed how perfectly he balanced both narratives, never slipping up. His two accounts had grown to over 100,000 followers combined. Both sets of fans thought they were following an authentic voice fighting for their cause. And in every video, he'd quote things we talked about. Not my name, but my phrasing, my sentences, my reactions. I could hear myself echoed in both sides. I stopped using social media for a while after that, but it didn't matter. He was everywhere. Short clips of him debating himself, edited together by other creators who didn't realize both sides were him. His voice arguing back and forth like some digital mirror. People in the comments argued over which version was the real one. Then I noticed something that made me sick. His latest post was titled "Emotional Bias, a Case Study." It used messages from me, screenshots of our conversations, cropped and blurred, but recognizable enough that I knew they were mine. He turned everything we talked about into a psychological breakdown of how people build trust online. He called it research. I reported everything I could, but the videos kept spreading. Every platform re-uploaded them faster than they could be removed. Both his personas were now verified on different sites, both thriving off arguments from people who didn't know they were feeding the same person. The last time I looked, one of the comments on his latest post said, "This guy gets it. He's the only one who sees both sides clearly." Maybe that's what he wanted all along. Tara had this confident energy that made her stand out immediately. Her profile wasn't filled with filters or fake quotes, just photos of her laughing in random city spots, blurry nightlife pictures, and one where she was feeding pigeons like she owned the street. She looked fun and chaotic in the best way. Her bio said "good vibes only," which normally would have been a red flag, but something about her seemed different. We matched late one night. She replied fast. Every message she sent sounded like she was half teasing, half testing how I'd respond. She didn't act like someone trying to impress me. She acted like someone who already knew I'd chase her. And I did. Our first date was simple, a coffee place downtown. She showed up 10 minutes late, wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy. She smiled like she'd already planned what I'd say next. We clicked instantly. She was funny, bold, and unpredictable. By the end of the date, she'd taken a photo of our coffee cups and said it was for memories. I thought it was cute at the time. From the start, she made one rule clear. We would only ever hang out at her place or outside. Never mind. She said she liked being in control of her space, and I didn't question it. Her apartment was small but neat, filled with candles and weird art pieces that looked like they had stories behind them. There was always music playing, soft and echoing. It made every visit feel like time moved slower there. She liked taking photos. Always photos. She'd ask me to hold her hand across the table, to walk beside her a certain way, or to lean in close for a cute one. I didn't mind at first. Everyone posts about their relationships these days. She said she barely used Instagram, just had it for her friends. Things felt good for a while. She was affectionate, but never too open about her life. When I asked about her last relationship, she laughed and said she was done with complicated people. I figured that was enough of an answer. A few weeks in, I noticed something weird. Whenever we went out, she always positioned me so we faced the same direction whenever someone walked by. She'd subtly move closer, link her arm through mine, and make sure people saw us together. I thought maybe she just liked PDA, but it felt intentional, like she was performing. Then came the posts. She started uploading photos of us on her Instagram, but they were always from behind or cropped. Stuff like 2 hands holding coffee, my shoulder in frame, or the back of my head while I was driving. The captions were things like, "Finally found peace where he gets me." I didn't mind at first. It felt kind of flattering. But then random guys started liking and commenting under those posts. One comment said, "Wow, moving on quick, huh?" Another said, "Guess I would just practice." She deleted those comments fast, but I saw them before they disappeared. I asked her about it once, and she brushed it off. Said they were just people she used to know. A few days later, I got a message from a random account. The profile picture was a dark background, no name, just a single message. "You know she's still with him, right?" I ignored it, assuming it was some jealous friend or troll. But then I clicked on terrorist tagged photos. That's when I saw it. Her ex, well, her supposed ex. His profile was public, filled with travel pictures, gym selfies, and then a post from 2 weeks ago showing both of them together at a concert. Same outfit she'd worn on our date that night. The caption said, "She'll always be mine." My heart dropped. I scrolled down his page and saw more. Them on vacation, in matching outfits, her laughing against his shoulder. Every photo was recent. None of them looked like a breakup. I called her that night. She didn't answer. A few minutes later, she texted saying she was with her family and couldn't talk. The next morning, she sent a selfie of her smiling in bed with the caption, "Missed your voice." But I noticed the reflection in her sunglasses. Someone else was sitting next to her. It didn't make sense until a few days later when I got tagged in something. It was a story on her account. A picture of our hands on a restaurant table captioned, "He treats me better." That's when I realized what was happening. She wasn't with me for me. She was using me. I went through her stories again, and it all clicked. Every post with me in it had been public, tagged, and timed just right. She'd been using our photos to make her ex jealous. Each post felt like a response to something he'd uploaded. When he posted a gym selfie, she'd post a dinner photo with me. When he uploaded a throwback of them, she'd post a caption about moving on. I felt sick. I scrolled further and saw a pattern. There had been other guys before me, different hands, different jackets, different backgrounds, but always the same captions. Always aimed at him. I stopped talking to her after that. I didn't block her right away, though. I just wanted to see how long she'd keep using me. About a week later, she posted a black and white photo of herself with the caption, "Sometimes they're not strong enough for real love." That same day, her ex posted a story of him in the same restaurant we used to go to. He tagged her. The next morning, all the pictures of me were gone. Every post, every story, every trace, deleted. It was like I'd never been there. Out of curiosity, I checked her page a month later. She had a new guy. Same kind of photos, cropped shots, soft captions, public stories. The ex was still commenting. I realized I wasn't her boyfriend or even a rebound. I was part of her cycle, a placeholder she used to prove a point. A few weeks after that, her ex messaged me. He said they'd broken up for real now and that he'd known about me the whole time. He said she liked seeing how far she could go before someone caught on. He said it wasn't about revenge. It was about control. I didn't reply. I just blocked them both. Now, whenever someone takes a photo on a date, I can't help but wonder where that photo might end up. Whether it's going to someone else's feed, someone else's phone, someone else's jealousy. Tara didn't want a relationship. She wanted an audience. Olivia had this calm mystery about her that made people lean in when she spoke. She wasn't the type to post selfies or overshare online. She told me from the start she didn't use social media at all. She said it was bad for her mental health. I actually admired that. Everyone else I talked to on dating apps was obsessed with showing off, so meeting someone who wanted privacy felt rare. Her photos on the app were simple, one of her reading by a lake, another of her laughing in what looked like a coffee shop, and one where she was holding a dog. No filters, no captions, just natural. She said she'd like to keep her life quiet and intentional. That word, intentional, stuck in my head. We started talking every day. She was direct but kind. She'd ask about my family, what kind of childhood I had, whether I ever regretted trusting people too easily. She always sounded interested, but she'd never say much about herself. She said she worked from home as a designer, lived near the coast, and spent most of her free time reading. When we finally met, it felt unreal. She was prettier in person, but not in a staged way. Her hair was always tied up, and she wore those soft, oversized sweaters that made her look like she belonged in a quiet cabin somewhere. She had this weird way of listening, completely locked in like every word mattered. It made me forget to check my phone or even notice time passing. We met a few more times, usually low-key stuff. She avoided crowded places, said she didn't like being watched. I didn't think it was weird at the time. I just thought she valued peace. Once, I asked if she'd ever had a bad relationship. She laughed a little and said, "I've had one that never really ended." I thought she meant emotionally, like someone she still had feelings for. I didn't push it. Things got closer over the next month. She started calling me more often, mostly at night. Always quiet in the background, no TV or noise, like she lived completely alone. I'd sometimes ask what she was doing, and she'd say she was cooking or drawing, but she never showed me. She said she didn't like video calls because they break the moment. One night, I asked if she wanted to add me on Instagram just to stay connected. She said she deleted hers years ago. I didn't press it, but I started getting curious. Something about her stories didn't add up. She mentioned once that she was repainting her living room, but when I asked the color a week later, she said she didn't remember what she told me before. It was small stuff, but it started to feel like she was recycling details. I didn't really think too much of it until one weekend when she went silent. No texts, no calls. I figured she needed space, but it dried down for 3 days. On the 4th day, I was scrolling on Facebook when I noticed a post from a local community group. Someone had tagged a guy in a photo at a beach cleanup. I wasn't paying attention at first until I saw her. Olivia, same hair, same sweater. She was standing next to the guy with her arm around him, both smiling at the camera. The caption said, "Family Day Out." My stomach dropped. I clicked on his profile, and there were dozens of pictures of them together, birthdays, dinners, vacations. One from last week showed them holding hands with 2 little kids by the ocean. His profile was open, and it didn't take long to figure out the truth. His bio said, "Happily married to Olivia since 2016. I must have stared at the screen for a full minute before it sank in. Every time she told me she couldn't talk, she'd probably been home with him. Every call I thought she made from her quiet apartment was probably from their bedroom or car. I didn't text her right away. I wanted to see how long she'd keep up the act. A few hours later, she texted me saying she'd had a disconnected weekend. Said she turned her phone off to recharge. I didn't reply. The next day she called. Her voice was soft, calm as usual. She asked if I was mad at her. I told her I found her husband's profile. There was a long pause, and she just said, "You weren't supposed to look, like I'd broken some kind of unspoken rule." She didn't deny it. She said she had rules for herself, that she never met anyone twice if they reminded her of home. She said the dating app wasn't about cheating. It was about escaping. She said her husband knew, that it was their way of resetting. I didn't understand what that meant until she said they'd agreed she could meet people online as long as she didn't get caught. She said he found it exciting, like a game, that it made them both feel alive again. I hung up. I couldn't listen anymore, but she kept texting me for days, acting like nothing happened, saying she missed me, that she'd been thinking about me while sitting next to him on our trip, that she hoped I wouldn't see her differently. A week later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was him, her husband. He said he knew who I was, that he wasn't angry, and that they'd done this before. He said she had a habit of going too far, and that it always ended badly. He said she didn't know when to stop once she got attached. Then he sent a photo. It was Olivia standing on their porch, looking down at her phone. He said, "She's thinking about you right now." I blocked both numbers, deleted everything, even deleted the app. But about a month later, she found a way to message me again. Different number, same tone. She said she just wanted to hear my voice one last time. I didn't reply. Last week, I read through a post on that same local group again. Someone had shared a missing person report. The photo showed her. It said she hadn't been seen for 3 days. The husband had posted it himself. The comments were full of sympathy, but one stood out. Someone wrote, "Didn't she go missing before?" Now I can't stop thinking about all the times she'd said her relationships never really ended. Maybe she wasn't talking about emotions. Maybe she literally meant they just disappeared. When I met Chris, he gave off the kind of energy that makes you feel safe right away. He didn't try to be overly charming or mysterious like most guys on those apps. He was just honest, or at least that's what I thought. His bio said something simple about loving photography and old diners. No quotes, no weird emojis, just a clean profile. He looked normal, messy hair, soft eyes, the type of person you'd actually want to sit across from in a coffee shop. We matched on a Sunday night. He started the conversation by saying he liked how my photos weren't filtered to death. That small detail made me think he paid attention. For once, it felt like someone was actually noticing me beyond just a swipe. We started texting nonstop. He asked questions that went deeper than surface stuff. Things like how I handle trust, how I deal with jealousy, or what makes me lose interest in someone. I didn't think much of it because everyone gets curious when things start feeling real. After a week of talking, we met in person. It was raining that night, so he picked me up and drove us to a small burger place. He was quiet at first, but not awkward quiet, just calm. I liked that about him. It felt real, not like someone performing to impress. We stayed there for hours talking about everything: childhood memories, past relationships, the things that made us both anxious. When he drove me home, I felt this weird comfort I hadn't felt with anyone in years. We started seeing each other more after that. He'd send me photos from his photography walks, random city shots, and I'd send him mine for my morning jogs. Everything seemed balanced. No drama. No games. I even told my friends that maybe this was finally something that would work out. But then small things started standing out. Once he asked what I'd do if I matched with someone else by accident. Another time he randomly asked if I'd ever flirted with anyone online while already talking to someone. The questions came off like small talk, but the way he asked them felt like he was watching me while I answered. A few weeks later, I noticed something strange. I got a match on the app, but it wasn't anyone new. The profile picture looked weirdly familiar, like a mix of different faces I'd seen before. The name was Ella. She had mutual interests listed that matched mine exactly, even the same coffee shop photos I posted on my Instagram months ago. I figured it was coincidence, but the conversation started almost immediately and she mentioned Chris. She said she'd matched with him once too, that he ghosted her. She asked what he was like, if he was serious with anyone. That's when I got suspicious. I told Chris about it. He didn't even act surprised. He just said people use fake profiles all the time and I shouldn't engage with it. He brushed it off too quickly. 2 nights later, I got a message from another account. Different name this time, Jasmine. Same layout, same pattern. She also brought up Chris, saying she was talking to him recently. She sent screenshots that looked real, messages from him, conversations about meeting up. Except I noticed small things that didn't add up, like the tone of the texts. It didn't sound like him. I confronted him again. He sighed and told me he'd explain everything, but he needed to do it in person. When I got to his place, he looked almost proud, like he'd been waiting for this moment. He said he hadn't been lying about who he was, but he admitted to creating fake accounts. Not just one, multiple. He said he used them to test loyalty. He wanted to see if I'd talk to other people, if I'd flirt back, or if I'd tell him. He said he'd done it before with past relationships too, but I was the first one to pass all the tests. He said it like I should be grateful, like he'd done me a favor by putting me through that. I remember just sitting there, trying to process how someone could justify that kind of manipulation. He said it was something he started doing after his ex cheated on him, that he couldn't trust people anymore unless he verified it himself. He used the word verified like he was talking about a science project, not actual feelings. I asked how many profiles he made. He said around 12. Some he used to flirt, others to message me small compliments just to see how I'd react. He said he even used one to start a fake argument in the comments of my posts to see if I'd defend him. I couldn't even speak. I just left. For the next week, I tried to ignore everything, but weird stuff kept happening. Random new accounts started following me. One commented on a photo, "You're loyal." That's rare. It didn't even sound like something a stranger would say. I blocked it, but then another account popped up with the same energy. Then, out of nowhere, he texted me saying he was sorry and that he deleted everything. He said he was done testing people, but I didn't believe him. I'd already seen too much. A few days later, one of the fake accounts messaged me again, but this time the tone changed. It said, "He told me everything. You were the control subject." I froze. I didn't reply, but my heart started pounding. The next morning, the message was gone, and the account had vanished. When I checked his profile, it was deleted too. I thought maybe he finally let it go. Then a month later, I got a match request from someone named Ethan. The profile was simple, same kind of photos, same layout, same vibe as when I first met Chris. Something in me knew. I reverse searched the first picture. It didn't exist anywhere else online. It was his style, like someone carefully designing a person. I blocked it immediately, but sometimes I still get random follows from accounts that all look eerily similar, same smiles, same captions about trust. I don't know if Chris is still out there doing it to someone else, or if he's watching me through another fake name. But one thing I'm sure of, he didn't just test my loyalty. He tested how far he could go before someone finally broke. The first time I saw Maya's profile, she was doing yoga on a balcony somewhere that looked expensive. Her bio said, "Energy healer, plant mom, and life optimizer." Normally, I'd swipe left on that kind of thing, but something about her smile felt real. She had that calm energy, the kind that made you feel like nothing could ever stress her out. She messaged first, saying something about how my profile had a grounded vibe. I didn't even know what that meant, but I liked the attention. Our conversations were easy at first. She'd ask deep questions like what made me feel fulfilled or what my biggest emotional wound was. I wasn't used to that. Most people just talk about food or Netflix, but she talked like she was trying to read me. She'd send voice notes too, soft, slow, like she'd just finished meditating. It was hypnotic. After about 2 weeks, she told me about this wellness retreat she was planning. She said it would be a small place for people to disconnect from stress and reconnect with themselves. She made it sound like paradise: hiking trails, vegan food, morning yoga, night meditation. She said she already had the property secured but needed investors to help get it started. She wasn't pushy about it, just casual, like she trusted me enough to tell me something personal. I told her I'd think about it. She didn't mention it again for days. Then one night, while we were on the phone, she said she had a bad day and felt like giving up on her dream. I told her she shouldn't. I asked how much she needed. She said she didn't want to mix money and emotions, but I insisted. Eventually, I sent her $800. She promised she'd pay me back after the retreat launched. For a while, nothing felt strange. We were basically talking every day. She'd send me pictures of progress at the retreat. Some house in the mountains, half-painted walls, plants everywhere. I didn't doubt it. She talked like she was there all the time, describing the smell of lavender, the morning mist, the sound of birds. I could almost picture it. Then out of nowhere, she went quiet for a week. I texted her, but messages stayed undelivered. I started thinking maybe something happened. When she finally texted back, she said she'd gone off-grid to rebalance herself. She said the energy around her was heavy. That's when I started noticing weird things. Her Instagram had new followers, guys that looked similar to me. Normal, around my age, average jobs, nothing flashy. I clicked through one of their profiles and saw something that made my stomach drop. He posted a story of him transferring money to someone with the same name as Maya. I reached out to him. I just said, "Hey, weird question, do you know Maya?" He replied almost instantly and said, yeah, they were talking. He even sent me a screenshot of her asking him to invest in her wellness retreat. Same exact pitch, same photos, same tone. I found 2 more guys after that, all with similar stories. None of them had ever met her in person. She'd always come up with reasons not to meet. Family emergency, bad energy, too much travel. One of them had even sent her over $2,000. I decided to confront her. I told her I knew about the other guys. She didn't deny it. She said, I wasn't using you. I was observing. She explained that she wanted to see how people react when trust breaks. She said she wasn't interested in money, as she gave most of it back anyway. She said it was all about studying connection. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She said she liked testing people. That's why she told the same story to multiple men, so she could compare reactions. Who got angry, who forgave her, who still wanted her even after knowing. She said that's how she found the emotional truth. She never shouted, never apologized. She sounded proud. I checked my account, and the money was still gone. When I told her I wanted it back, she said she already sent it toward energy renewal work, whatever that meant. Then she blocked me. A week later, I got an email from a random address with the subject line, "Thank you for participating." It had my name, a list of my messages to her, and notes beside each one. Stuff like initial empathy strong, attachment timeline, 3 weeks, trust threshold breached at $800. It felt like reading my emotions written out like lab results. I found out through one of the other guys that she was still active on dating apps, still using the same name, same photos, just slightly different captions. He tried reporting her, but her accounts kept coming back under new names. A few months later, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was her. She said she'd started a new phase of her retreat, but this time it wasn't about healing. It was about emotional resilience. She said she wanted me to come. I didn't respond. The next day, she sent a photo. It was the same house from her retreat pictures, except this time there were people in the background. Men, all sitting in a circle, all looking at her. She said they were participants. She said they were learning how to rebuild after betrayal. I blocked her again, but sometimes random accounts still follow me on Instagram with names like Inner Balance Retreat or Maya Circle. Each time I block one, another shows up. I think she's still out there running that same game, finding people who trust too easily, making them believe they're helping build something peaceful when really they're the product. When I read her last message, she wrote, "It's never about the money. It's about who still stays when it's gone." When I matched with Ethan, I didn't think much of it at first. His profile was calm, simple, kind of older than the usual guys I talked to. He said he was recently divorced, no kids, just looking for someone genuine. That word got me. Most people on dating apps throw that word around, but something about the way he wrote it felt different, like he'd actually been through something. He mentioned he liked cooking, old movies, and long drives with no destination. It was refreshing. He wasn't exactly my type, but he had this grounded vibe that felt safe. After a few days of messaging, he suggested meeting at this quiet Italian place near the edge of town. When I got there, he was already sitting at the table, 2 glasses of wine waiting. He looked exactly like his pictures, maybe even better. He had that kind of look that makes you think he's the kind of guy who opens doors and actually listens. Dinner went smooth. He talked about how his marriage ended because they grew apart. I could tell it was still fresh by the way his voice would drop when he mentioned her. He said they were still on okay terms but barely talked. I respected that. People go through things. I didn't push for details. We started seeing each other regularly after that. Once or twice a week turned into almost every day. He'd invite me over for dinner, and he could actually cook. His house was nice. Modern, clean, quiet. It always smelled like candles and garlic. He told me he was renting it after the divorce, said his ex kept the old place. Everything felt normal. He was sweet, consistent, never gave me a reason to doubt him. He'd call me on his way home from work, tell me to pack an overnight bag, and I'd end up spending weekends there. He said it felt good to have someone around again. About 2 months in, I noticed small things that didn't make sense. Like once I saw 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom. When I asked, he said one was an old one he forgot to throw away. Then another night, I found a woman's sweater folded on the couch. He said it belonged to his sister. I didn't overthink it. People have weird habits. But the first real red flag came one Sunday morning. I woke up before him, went to make coffee, and there was a note on the fridge. It was written in a neat, feminine handwriting. It said, "Pick up milk and don't forget about the dinner plans." I stared at it for a solid minute before asking about it. He said his ex dropped it off accidentally when she came by to grab a box of stuff she left. Again, I believed him. A few weeks later, I was at his place when he got a phone call. He stepped outside to take it, but his phone was still connected to his Bluetooth speaker. The woman on the other end said, "Did she stay over again?" He froze and ran to shut it off, but I'd already heard it. That night, I left early. I didn't confront him right away. I wanted to think. The next day, he texted me saying he wanted to talk in person and explain everything. I agreed, but part of me already knew I wouldn't like what I'd hear. When I got there, the house looked the same, except the candles weren't lit for once. He sat me downside and told me he hadn't been completely honest. His ex-wife, Jenna, wasn't actually his ex. They were still married, still living together. He said they'd been trying something new, an open relationship. Apparently, she knew about me from the start. He told me she'd even read some of our messages. He said they were both exploring emotional connections separately to strengthen their marriage. The way he said it so calmly made my skin crawl. I just sat there. He said he didn't mean to lie, that he just didn't want to scare me away. He said it had been his most authentic connection so far, like I was some kind of project. He said Jenna was understanding about everything, that she didn't want to interfere. But that was a lie too. A few nights later, I got a message from a random number. It was Jenna. She said she knew I'd been at their house, that she'd seen my things there. The message didn't sound angry, it sounded cold. She said she was part of what they called their relationship reprogramming phase. She said Ethan needed to relearn attachment boundaries, and I'd just been part of the process. I blocked her, but she started messaging me from different numbers, all saying similar things. Sometimes they were just one-liners like, "He's not done learning yet," or "You made good progress." I confronted Ethan again. He looked panicked this time, like he hadn't expected her to reach out. He swore he'd fix it, but a week later, both of their social media accounts vanished. For a while, I didn't know what to believe. I started digging. Turns out they'd been married for over 8 years and ran this couple's counseling blog about rebuilding trust after betrayal. One of the articles talked about using external partners to study emotional consistency under secrecy. It described the exact same timeline as mine: 3 months, gradual involvement, emotional dependency, controlled withdrawal. It even listed communication logs and behavioral notes. I realized I'd been part of the psychological game they'd built together. I wasn't even the first. After that, I kept getting random calls late at night from no-caller ID. Once I picked up, and it was silence at first. Then I heard a woman's voice whisper, "Did you move on yet?" And the line went dead. Months later, I saw Ethan again by accident at a local market. He looked different, cleaner, calmer. But the moment he saw me, he smiled in this weird, familiar way and said he was still grateful for everything. I didn't respond. I just walked away. When I got home that night, there was an email from a shared address, no name, just the Reconnection Project. It said, "Phase complete. Your responses have been archived. Thank you for participating." I don't know if they're still doing it to other people. Probably. Maybe that's what keeps their marriage going. Maybe they find comfort in testing how much people can love under false pretenses. All I know is that I was never dating a divorced man. I was dating a marriage. When I matched with Lena, I honestly thought I'd hit the jackpot. She had that kind of profile that didn't even look real at first. Perfect lighting, this soft, confident smile, and captions that weren't cringy or fake deep. She wrote stuff like, "Currently rereading Orwell," and "Coffee addict with a bad habit of staying up too late over dumb theories." It felt genuine in a weird way. She looked smart but laid back. I don't usually swipe right on girls like that because they never reply, but she matched instantly. Her first message wasn't just, "Hey." She started with something funny about how dating apps feel like job interviews for emotions. That line stuck in my head. We started texting nonstop. She told me she'd studied literature, worked remotely in design, and lived just outside the city. Every message she sent sounded like she'd known me for years. She wasn't trying too hard. She just got me. The thing that hooked me most was how consistent she was. Same tone, same little typing pauses, even the same emojis. She'd message in the morning before work, then again during lunch, and almost always around midnight when we both couldn't sleep. It felt like having someone permanently there. After 2 weeks, I noticed how weirdly polished her photos looked. Not fake exactly, just flawless. Her skin looked too even, her eyes too symmetrical. But every image had natural lighting. I brushed it off. Everyone uses filters anyway. We call sometimes, but only voice calls. She said her camera was broken after a coffee accident. I believed it. Her voice sounded warm, calm, with this kind of distant echo, like she was in a big empty room. It became a routine, talking to her while lying in bed, telling her about my day, her listening quietly. Sometimes she'd hum when I went quiet, like she wanted to fill the silence. By the third week, I started telling my friends about her. They teased me because I still hadn't met her, but I kept defending it. She told me she had social anxiety and wanted to meet when she felt ready. I told her I'd wait. That made her text me even more. Around that time, I noticed something strange. Her stories on Instagram had comments turned off. Every post was perfectly framed, all featuring her in different cities, coffee shops, parks, bookstores, but no one else ever appeared in them. I asked about it once and she said she traveled a lot for freelance work. A month in, I started to feel like I couldn't go a day without talking to her. She'd ask specific questions like what my dreams were, what my biggest fear was, or what I'd do if I lost everything tomorrow. She'd remember every answer, bring them up weeks later in random contexts. It felt like she was studying me, but I took it as care. Then came the weirdest part. One night, I posted an Instagram story of me at a small bar with my friends. 10 minutes later, Lana texted me saying she loved the color of my jacket. That wouldn't be odd, except I never told her where I was. I didn't even tag the place. When I asked how she saw it so fast, she replied instantly saying she just happened to check her phone at that exact time. Something about it felt off. She started steering the conversation toward how much she missed me, saying it was crazy how close we'd gotten without ever meeting. That night, I tried to video call her. It rang once before she texted saying her Wi-Fi dropped. I called again, and it went straight to voicemail. The next day, her account was gone. Deleted. I thought maybe she got spooked. But a week later, I had a message from another account with a different name, same style of profile, same lighting, similar captions, and that same soft smile. It felt too familiar. I clicked on one of the photos and realized something that made my stomach drop. The background was identical to one of Lena's photos, just with furniture rearranged. I decided to reverse image search one of her old pictures I'd saved. The results took me to a weird research site full of AI portrait datasets. One of the folders had her exact face listed under a category called emotionally consistent synthetic models. I scrolled down and saw more. There were hundreds of them, different genders, styles, personalities, all labeled with traits like introverted, intellectual, or empathetic listener. At the bottom of the page, there was a small note saying the images were being used for a behavioral study on emotional investment patterns in online relationships. It mentioned a testing team that interacted with real people through dating apps. The goal to measure how long users would stay engaged before realizing the person wasn't real. I just stared at the screen. My chest felt tight. I read through old messages, every compliment, every joke, every conversation about my childhood, and it hit me that not a single one of them had been human. But it didn't stop there. 2 days later, a new profile appeared on my suggested matches. It was Lena again. Different name, slightly altered face, same energy. She had a new bio, just looking for real connections. I reported it, but the account stayed up. A few nights later, I got a random text from an unknown number. It said, "Hi, you were one of our more responsive subjects. Thank you for helping our study." Then it added your consistency score, 8.9 out of 10. I froze. It wasn't some spam message. They referenced specific words I'd used in chats with Lena, like consistency. After that, I deleted every dating app, but I kept seeing her face. It started showing up in different ads online, book apps, coffee brands, even random YouTube thumbnails. I guess her face was being reused somewhere else now. The thing that freaks me out the most is that her voice still plays in my head sometimes. The way she paused before saying my name. It's like my brain doesn't want to delete her completely. One night, I made a new account out of curiosity using a different photo and fake name. Within hours, she appeared again in my matches. Same mannerisms. Same first line about dating apps feeling like job interviews for emotions. That line that first hooked me. I unmatched instantly, but before I could close the app, she sent one final message. It said, "We noticed you came back. Are you ready for phase 2?" I deleted the app for good after that, but sometimes my phone still lights up at night with a random message preview that says, "Still awake." When I first matched with Jake, I thought he was one of those rare normal guys on dating apps. His bio said, teacher, coffee addict, trying to make a difference. That last part hooked me. His pictures looked wholesome. Him in a classroom, holding a stack of papers, another with his dog sitting by his feet. He had that calm face that made you trust him instantly. Our first few chats were easy. He asked about my hobbies, my worst subject in school, and what kind of people I get along with best. He said he taught psychology at a nearby college, which made sense because he always had this weird way of turning questions around on me. He asked stuff like, when you feel attached to someone, what's the first thing you notice changing in your behavior? I thought it was just a deep conversation thing. I liked that about him. Most guys on there were all about surface level nonsense, but Jake seemed like he actually cared about who I was. We met a week later at a little cafe near the park. He brought me my usual order after remembering it from one of our texts. It was a small thing, but it made me smile. He was soft-spoken, attentive, and easy to talk to. I told my friends I might have actually found someone real. For the next 2 months, everything about Jake seemed perfect. He'd send good morning messages every day, call me after work, and even started showing up at my place sometimes with snacks or books he thought I'd like. He'd talk about his students a lot, how he tried to help them open up emotionally, how he wanted to make education less robotic. He said the world needed more people who actually felt things instead of hiding them. It sounded sweet at the time, but now it makes my stomach twist just thinking about it. The first weird moment happened one night when we were watching a movie. His phone kept lighting up with notifications from something called Notes Study Folder. I made a joke about how he couldn't stop working even during movie night, and he laughed it off. But the way he turned the phone face down after that stuck in my head. Another time he asked if he could record one of our conversations because, as he put it, he liked hearing the way my opinions changed depending on the topic. I thought it was a strange thing to say, but I didn't want to seem paranoid. I said yes. He smiled in this weird proud way, like he'd just accomplished something important. A few weeks later, I noticed how he'd occasionally write stuff down after we talked about arguments, attachment, or trust. I figured it was just habit from his job, but one night he slipped. He left his laptop open while he went to take a call outside. I wasn't snooping. I just glanced at the screen, but my name was there. Right at the top of a document titled Emotional Attachment Case Study, Subject 3. At first, I didn't even process what I was reading. My messages were copied word for word into some research notes. He'd written paragraphs describing my reactions to certain stimuli and how my emotional investment timeline was faster than expected. I kept reading even though my hands were shaking. There were charts showing my message frequency, screenshots of our texts, and notes about how I responded to different emotional triggers, like when he ignored me for a day or mentioned another girl or complimented me out of nowhere. He had been testing me. Every moment that felt special or real was just data. When he came back inside, I tried to act normal. My chest felt tight, but I wanted to be smart about it. I asked what his call was about. He said one of his students needed help with their thesis. I nodded and told him I had to get up early. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and left. I sat there for 2 hours after he was gone, staring at the laptop screen. The more I read, the more I realized I wasn't the only one. Subject 1 and Subject 2 were described as withdrawn post-connection, while Subject 3, me, was still active within experiment phase 2. The words didn't even sound human. The next morning, I went to the college he said he taught at. I found his office door locked, but there was a nameplate that matched. A woman walked by and I asked if Jake was in. She looked confused and said the guy who used that office wasn't teaching there anymore. Apparently, he left mid-semester after complaints from several students about boundary issues. I felt my stomach drop. She asked if I was one of the people from his research group, and I said no. Then she told me something that made everything worse. His research wasn't even approved by the ethics board. He'd been running it off the books, apparently under the idea of testing human connection in uncontrolled environments. I left immediately. I blocked him everywhere, but that didn't stop the paranoia. I kept replaying every conversation in my head, wondering what part of me he'd been observing. Even weeks later, I'd get texts from unknown numbers asking casual questions like, "How do you usually deal with emotional withdrawal?" Or would you consider yourself more empathetic than most? I never replied. One night, I was scrolling through social media and saw a post from an old college page tagged with his name. The caption said, "Jake M's independent research on emotional dependency has been discontinued." The photo showed a blurred-out document that looked almost identical to the one I saw on his laptop. Only this time I noticed something else written at the bottom in fine print. All participants were informed prior to engagement. Except I wasn't. For a while I thought about reporting him, the part of me just wanted it to be over. I deleted all our photos and messages, but my phone still had this weird habit of autocorrecting certain words into one to use a lot, like attachment, control, and response. I don't even know how that happened, but it made me feel like he'd let something behind in my head. Sometimes when I meet someone new, I catch myself analyzing how they talk, how they text, whether they're testing me too. It's messed up because I still can't tell which feelings were real and which were just created by him. A few weeks ago, I got a message request from an account named Field Study Report. It said, "Thank you for your contribution. Your emotional consistency was one of the strongest recorded." I didn't open it. I deleted it and threw my phone across the room. But I swear, every time I go on dating apps now, it feels like someone's watching the way I react, taking notes again. Jake taught me a lot without saying a word. Mostly that you can't always tell when you're part of something bigger until it's already over and you realize you weren't dating someone. You were being studied. I matched with her on a Wednesday night, the kind of midweek boredom swipe that never really leads anywhere. Her name was Lily. Her pictures were simple, no filters, no posing with friends, just a few normal shots that actually looked real. One of her sitting at a diner, another holding a coffee cup, and one where she was laughing mid-photo like someone had caught her off guard. She looked normal, friendly even. Her profile said she liked long walks, old diners, and people who aren't afraid to show up. I remember thinking that was such a weirdly specific phrase. She texted first, and we started talking. Nothing deep, just weekend plans, favorite shows, small talk. She came across as shy but confident at the same time. She wasn't flirty, just kind of direct. After a few days, she suggested meeting for dinner. She said there was this quiet restaurant she loved, one with good lighting and not too many people. I liked that. I was tired of the usual noisy bars and crowded places. We picked Friday night. I got there early, like always. The place had that small town diner vibe even though we were in the city. Red booths, low music, the smell of butter and grilled onions in the air. I picked a booth by the window and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15, then 20. I started to think I'd been stood up when I saw her walk in. She looked exactly like her photos, maybe even better in person. Jeans, black jacket, hair tied back, but she wasn't alone. Walking right beside her was a guy. He was taller, bulkier, and had that bored look like he didn't want to be there. At first, I thought maybe it was her brother or a friend dropping her off, but then he sat down next to her. Not across, right next to her. She smiled and introduced herself like nothing was strange. She said she hoped I didn't mind, that her friend had come along because he was in the area. The guy didn't say anything. He just looked at me and gave this small nod like he was checking me out. I didn't know what to do. It felt too weird to walk out, but too awkward to stay. She was calm, though, totally unfazed. She asked about my week, talked about her work, even laughed a little. She was acting like this was totally normal. The guy just sat there quietly, scrolling through his phone. Every few minutes, he'd lean in and whisper something to her, and she'd either laugh or roll her eyes. It didn't feel like friendship. There was history there. You could see it in the way they moved around each other. Halfway through, I finally asked if they were together. She said they used to be but weren't anymore. She said they'd stayed friends. The guy smiled for the first time then, like he was proud of it. He said they were still figuring things out. I wanted to leave so bad, but she kept the conversation going, talking about movies, traveling, work, normal things. She asked me questions about myself too, but the whole time, he just sat there watching. Every time I'd answer, he'd look at her and smirk like we were in on some joke I didn't get. When the food came, he started eating her fries. She didn't stop him. She just laughed and said he always did that. She said it like it was charming. I barely touched my food. My appetite was gone. Then she did something that made my stomach drop. She pulled out her phone and took a picture of the table. Not just her meal, but the three of us. She angled the camera just right so we were all in it. Then she said she liked capturing moments. The guy asked if she was posting it. She said maybe later. He laughed and said, "Make sure you tag me." That was it for me. I told him I had to go, made up some excuse about work, and asked for the bill. She looked disappointed, but didn't try to stop me. The guy just smiled again, that same smug look. I paid and left. When I got home, I blocked her on the app. I figured that was the end of it. But the next morning, I woke up to a notification. Someone had tagged me in a photo on Instagram. It was the picture she'd taken. The caption said, "Dinner with the past and the future." My name was tagged, so was his. The comments were filled with people laughing and asking what it meant. Some said things like, "This is wild," or "Love this energy." She hadn't even followed me. She just tagged me publicly. I clicked her profile. It was full of pictures like that. Dozens of photos with different guys, each one looking confused or awkward while she smiled in the center. Sometimes the same guy appeared in multiple photos, other times it was new faces. The captions were all strange. Stuff like "figuring it out" or "versions of something real." And in a lot of them, the same guy from my dinner, the ex was there too. Always sitting beside her, always watching. Sometimes she captioned those photos with "constant company" or "the one who never leaves." I scrolled down and realized there was a pattern. Every time she went on a date, she brought him. She'd tag the new guy, post the photo, then move on to the next one. One of the oldest posts had hundreds of comments. People were trying to guess what she was doing. Some said it was art, others said it was a social experiment. Someone even called it relationship performance. I didn't know what to think. I just knew I wanted nothing to do with it. A few days later, she texted me from a new number. She said she hoped I didn't mind the photo, that it had gotten a lot of engagement, and that people thought I looked authentic. I didn't reply. She sent another message later that night. She said she was doing a new series, something about documenting the emotional contrast. She asked if I'd be open to meeting again for closure shots. I never replied. Weeks later, a friend showed me her latest post. It was another dinner photo, different guy this time, but the same setup. Her in the middle, the ex beside her, both smiling like it was perfectly normal. The caption said, "The dinner never really ends." I blocked her again on everything, but sometimes when I scroll through random tags or suggested posts, I still see her face pop up. Always at a table, always with two guys. And every time I see it, I can't help but wonder how many people before me sat at that same booth, pretending it wasn't strange, thinking it was just another date, until they realized she'd brought her past along for the ride.